Alright, let's talk about something you've probably never heard of. When you think of viruses that have a major impact on global health, HIV, influenza, coronaviruses, these are the headliners, the ones that get all the media attention and research funding. But what if I told you there's another virus, a quiet and persistent one that has been affecting millions of people for decades, largely in the shadows? This is the human T-cell lymphotropic virus type 1, or HTLV1. It's a real virus with real consequences, but it lives in a state of medical obscurity for the vast majority of the public and even many healthcare professionals. It's time to pull back the curtain on this forgotten virus. The reason HTLV1 remains so unknown is complex. Part of it is because it doesn't cause a dramatic, fast-moving pandemic. Instead, it works slowly, often staying completely dormant for a person's entire life. Most people who carry HTLV1 will never know they have it, and will never experience any symptoms. This lack of immediate, widespread illness means it doesn't generate the same level of urgency or public fear. However, for the small percentage of individuals who do develop diseases from this virus, the consequences can be devastatingly severe. Ignoring HTLV1 because it's rare or quiet is a disservice to the millions living with it and those at risk of its most serious complications. So why are we talking about it today on August 27, 2025? Because awareness is the first step in medicine. It's what drives research. When I mention a virus that attacks T cells, your mind probably jumps straight to HIV. That's a great starting point because HTLV1 and HIV are in fact distant cousins. They both belong to the same family of viruses, known as retroviruses. This means they share a similar, very clever strategy for infection. A retrovirus is a type of virus that inserts a copy of its own genetic material into the DNA of the host cell it infects. This is a permanent change. Once that viral code is in your cell's DNA, it's there for good. This is why infections like HIV and HTLV1 are lifelong chronic conditions. It's a one-way street, biologically speaking. But this is where the family resemblance starts to fade, and the crucial differences appear. While both target a specific type of T cell called the CD4 plus T cell, they do very different things once they're inside. HIV's main strategy is to kill these cells. It hijacks the cell's machinery to make millions of copies of itself, and in the process, the host T cell is destroyed. This leads to a progressive decline in the number of T cells, crippling the immune system and leading to acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. This is why HIV is so dangerous. It systematically dismantles your body's defenses. HTLV1, on the other hand, plays a different game. Instead of killing the T cells, it often causes them to multiply uncontrollably. It essentially hijacks the cell's on switch for replication and presses it down hard. This is a process called cellular proliferation. So instead of a deficiency of T cells, you can get an overabundance of them. But these are infected dysfunctional cells. Understanding how a virus spreads is fundamental to preventing it. For HTLV1, transmission routes are very specific. They require transfer of infected cells, not free viral particles. Key point: you need an infected T cell to move from person to person. This makes HTLV1 less easily transmitted, but it defines specific high-risk situations. There are three primary routes: mother-to-child sexual contact, contaminated blood products. Each route involves direct cellular exchange, the virus's only ticket to a new host. Most common globally, mother-to-child, almost always via breastfeeding. Infected T cells are present in breast milk. Prolonged breastfeeding increases chance of lifelong infection. Breastfeeding is promoted for health benefits in endemic regions. This creates a public health dilemma. Duration of breastfeeding is a key factor. Longer breastfeeding equals higher risk. Second major pathway, sexual contact. HTLV1 can pass between sexual partners. Virus is present in semen and vaginal fluids contained in infected lymphocytes. Once HTLV1 enters the body, it begins its work as a silent intruder. Its primary target is the CD4 plus T cell, a crucial component of your immune system. These T cells coordinate the immune response against many infections. The virus uses a specific protein on its surface to latch onto receptors on the T cell. It then fuses with the cell and injects its genetic material inside. This is where the retroviral magic, or menace, happens. The virus uses an enzyme called reverse transcriptase to convert its RNA into DNA. That DNA is then permanently integrated into the host cell's chromosomes. Integration is the key to HTLV1's lifelong persistence and stealth. Once the viral DNA, now called a provirus, is woven into your cell's genetic blueprint, it's essentially hidden from the immune system. The provirus can lie dormant for a very long time, even a lifetime, without causing problems. The infected T cell can keep functioning normally, and it can divide, creating new cells that also carry the hidden viral code. This is why over 90% of people with HTLV-1 are asymptomatic carriers. They have the virus, but it never activates to cause disease. However, the virus isn't always completely silent. Even dormant, it can produce proteins. One called TAX can interfere with the cell's normal functions. TAX can push the infected T cell to divide and replicate more than it should. That drives the proliferation we discussed earlier, so even in an asymptomatic person, the number of infected T cells slowly increases over time. This is measured as the proviral load, the percentage of blood cells carrying HTLV-1. For decades, someone can live with expanding infected cell populations with no outward signs. While most people with HTLV-1 remain healthy, the virus is not benign. For a small but significant minority estimated to be around 5 to 10%, the long-term presence of the virus can lead to severe and life-threatening diseases. The two most well-known and serious conditions are adult T-cell leukemia or lymphoma, ATL, and a neurological disorder known as HTLV-1-associated myelopathy or tropical spastic paraparesis, HAM-TSP. These conditions are the most devastating potential outcomes, the visible and dangerous tip of a much larger iceberg of asymptomatic carriers. They are the reasons why this forgotten virus demands our attention. Adult T-cell leukemia or lymphoma, ATL, is an aggressive cancer of the T cells. It typically develops 20 to 40 years after the initial infection. In ATL, the viral protein TAX essentially short-circuits the cell's growth controls, leading to malignant, uncontrolled proliferation of the infected T cells. This cancer can affect the blood, which is leukemia, the lymph nodes, which is lymphoma, the skin and other organs as well. ATLL is very difficult to treat and often has a poor prognosis. The development of ATL is linked to a high proviral load, meaning people with a higher percentage of infected cells are at greater risk. It's a stark example of how a virus can directly cause cancer. The other major disease is HAM-TSP. This is not a cancer but a chronic and progressive inflammatory disease of the nervous system, specifically the spinal cord. In people with HAM-TSP, the immune system launches a massive attack on infected T cells that have migrated into the central nervous system. This immune response creates intense inflammation that damages the surrounding nerve tissue in the spinal cord. While ATL and HAM-TSP are the most severe diseases associated with HTLV-1, they're not the only health problems that can arise from this chronic infection. Research has increasingly shown that carrying the virus, even if you don't develop the big two, can be associated with a range of other inflammatory conditions. It seems that the constant presence of the virus keeps the immune system in a state of low-grade chronic activation. This can lead to a variety of issues where the immune system becomes overactive and starts to cause problems in different parts of the body. One of the more common associations is with a condition called HTLV-1-associated uveitis, which is an inflammation of the eye. This can cause blurry vision, eye pain, and sensitivity to light. Another is infective dermatitis, a chronic and relapsing skin condition seen primarily in children who acquired the virus from their mothers. The skin becomes inflamed, scaly, and prone to secondary bacterial infections. These conditions, while not as life-threatening as ATL, can cause significant discomfort and impact a person's quality of life. They are further evidence that the virus is not simply a passive passenger in the body. There are also links, though sometimes less clearly defined. So if this virus is so often silent, how do we find it? Diagnosing HTLV-1 involves a two-step process, similar to the testing strategy for many other viruses, including HIV. Here's the two-step test flow. The first step is a screening test. This is typically an enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA. ELISA doesn't look for the virus itself. It looks for antibodies your immune system makes against HTLV-1. Those antibodies remain in your blood for life if you're infected. ELISA is highly sensitive, good at detecting antibodies. A positive ELISA means antibodies were found. The person may have HTLV-1, but screening tests can give false positives. Sometimes the test detects unrelated antibodies that look similar, so a positive screen is not a final diagnosis. It just signals the need for more specific testing. The second step is a confirmatory test. Most labs use a Western blot for confirmation. Western blot also detects antibodies but is much more specific. It can tell antibodies to different HTLV-1 proteins apart. A positive Western blot shows characteristic bands that confirms infection. In some cases, PCR testing is used. PCR directly detects the virus's genetic material. the provirus. Testing HTLV-1 isn't routine for everyone, it's recommended for people at higher risk, people from endemic regions. This brings us to one of the most challenging aspects of HTLV-1. There is currently no cure for the virus itself. Once the provirus is integrated into T cells' DNA, we can't safely remove it. The infection is lifelong. There is also no vaccine to prevent HTLV-1, so medical strategy focuses on preventing transmission and managing disease. Most people with HTLV-1 are asymptomatic. They usually need no specific antiviral treatment. Regular medical follow-up is recommended. Monitor overall health check per viral load. Watch for early inflammatory signs. Watch for cancers. This watchful waiting is about catching problems early. It also opens chances for patient education on preventing transmission. If disease appears, treatment targets that condition. ATL treatments, chemotherapy, antiviral zidovudine, antiviral interferon alpha, sometimes stem cell transplantation. These can be aggressive and success varies. HAM-TSP treatments aim to reduce spinal inflammation and manage symptoms. Options include corticosteroids. So we've journeyed through the science of this largely unheard of virus. We know it's a cousin of HIV that infects T cells, but instead of destroying them, it can cause them to multiply. It spreads through very specific routes like breastfeeding sex blood. It's most common in specific parts of the world like Japan, the Caribbean parts of South America, Central Africa. For most of the 5 to 10 million people infected worldwide, HTLV-1 will remain a silent, lifelong companion that causes no harm. They will live their lives completely unaware of the viral code hidden within their cells. But for that small, unlucky percentage, the consequences are profound. The development of an aggressive cancer like ATL or a debilitating neurological disease like HAM-TSP can completely alter or end a person's life. And the broader spectrum of inflammatory conditions in the eyes, skin joints adds another layer of chronic illness that can be traced back to this single viral trigger. This is the paradox of HTLV-1. It is a low-risk virus on a population level, but a high-impact virus for the individuals who do get sick. And because it's so often overlooked, those individuals may suffer longer without a proper diagnosis. This is why HTLV-1 matters. It's a significant global health issue hiding in plain sight. It represents a challenge to our healthcare systems, requiring better screening.